All right, welcome back to the deep dive.
Yeah.
This time, we're diving into the creative world of Jack Antonoff,
Oh, yeah. This will be good.
and he's more than just the name behind all these huge pop hits, right? We're
Right.
talking Bleachers Fun, and then all the collaborations: Taylor Swift, Lord, Lana Del Rey.
Yeah, the list goes on and on.
It just goes on and on and on.
Yeah.
We've got interviews from Electric Lady, his newer LA studio, even some glimpses into his early days.
Cool.
So you ready to kind of unpack what makes this Grammy-winning musician and producer tick?
I am ready. Let's do it.
Let's do it.
We're going way beyond like just the typical success story headlines, you know?
Yeah.
To really understand what makes Antonoff so unique, like his artistry and his collaborative process.
Yeah, one thing that really stuck out to me when I was going through all this material was how much he emphasizes being a musician first and not just a producer.
Right.
Like, this guy is constantly writing, performing, creating his own music
Yeah.
alongside producing for all these other artists.
It's totally fundamental to who he is as like an artist, you know?
Totally.
And it comes through so clearly in his Pensative interview.
Yeah.
He says, I've always been in bands. I can't imagine my life not writing music and performing it.
Yeah.
It's a conversation you have with an audience that makes you feel alive in a very specific way.
Yeah, it's deeper than just like getting the music out there.
Totally.
It's that live energy exchange, right?
Yeah.
With the audience.
It's a feedback loop.
Yeah, it's like a feedback loop that fuels the whole creative process.
Totally like a grounding force.
Yeah. Yeah.
But speaking of grounding, what about those early days?
Oh, yeah.
You know, DIY MapQuest-fueled tours across the country?
Printing out directions?
I mean, come on.
That's dedication.
Yeah.
Like, such a stark contrast to his life now, right?
Oh, yeah.
But you can see how that, like, scrappy, independent spirit
Totally.
still influences him.
Absolutely. And it ties into this really interesting decision he made to step back from fun at the peak of their success, to focus on Bleachers.
Wow.
I mean, fun
There.
was huge. They were winning Grammys, topping the charts.
Yeah.
Most people wouldn't walk away from that.
It seems so counterintuitive,
Oh,
right?
man.
But he talks about how, for all the joy of that band's success,
Yeah.
it wasn't truly his story to tell. Like, he needed to pursue his own artistic vision,
Right.
even if it meant kind of stepping out of the spotlight a little bit.
Yeah, which takes serious guts.
Yeah.
But that seems to be like a recurring theme with Antonoff, right? Like, he doesn't chase fame or fortune. He
Right.
chases that authentic self-expression,
Yeah.
which makes me think about his North Star theory of collaboration.
Fill me in, because I'm not familiar with that.
Okay, so basically he believes that everyone involved in a project
Okay.
needs to be chasing the same vision, you know, the
Yeah.
same North Star,
Got it.
not just pushing their own individual ideas.
Okay.
And that's what leads to something truly special.
That makes a lot of sense. It's not about ego. It's about collective creation.
Exactly.
And that really clicked for me when I thought about Cruel Summer.
Oh, yeah.
You know, Taylor Swift has talked about how she and Antonoff, like, instantly connected on that vision for the song.
Yeah.
And then the rest was just figuring out how to get there.
Yeah, exactly. It's that shared goal that drives the process.
Right.
But here's the thing. Antonoff also says that he'd rather music sound new than just good. So what do you make of that?
It's definitely a bold statement.
Yeah.
Makes me think he prioritizes pushing boundaries and sonic experimentation over just playing it safe.
And that really comes through in his production choices. You know,
Totally.
take Antihero, for example.
Okay.
Uses those classic 80s sounds like the Linderman tremolo guitar,
Yeah.
but he combines them in these unexpected ways
Yeah.
with like distorted vocals and a driving bass line.
Yeah.
It's familiar, but it also feels totally fresh.
Yeah, and it's not just about the instruments either. He's not afraid to embrace those imperfections.
Yeah.
The little quirks that make a song feel more human.
Yeah, totally.
Like Lana Del Rey's spoken word outro in Venice Bitch.
Oh, yeah.
Or even his own, like, countrified vocal moment on Anyone.
Right. Those choices absolutely contribute to that unique, authentic Antonoff sound.
Totally.
It's not about achieving technical perfection.
Right.
It's about capturing the raw emotion, you know, the essence of the song.
It's like he's saying, let's make something that feels real, even if it's a little messy.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it's interesting to think about how, like, Antonoff's own life experiences, his openness about things like grief and anxiety, feed into that.
Totally.
He's definitely not afraid to explore the darker side of life alongside the joy and celebration.
Right.
It all comes through in his work.
And that vulnerability is something he seems to cultivate in his collaborations, too. Like,
Yeah.
think about Lord Taylor Swift, Lana Del Rey.
Yeah.
They all delve into those complex emotions in their music.
Totally. Like, they find this safe space in his studio
Yeah.
to express themselves fully.
Right.
And speaking of his studio,
Yeah.
Antonoff is fascinated by physical spaces.
Oh, yeah.
And how they influence creativity.
Yeah.
He even designed his new LA studio with that in mind.
Totally. He wants to capture the energy of not studios, places where music is like lived and breathed.
That's cool.
He even has tie lines in the bathroom so you can record wherever inspiration strikes.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
But even with this amazing new studio, he still talks about how much he loves his space at Electric Lady.
Yeah.
And the community there.
Totally. It's that sense of belonging,
Yeah.
That little New York scene he's always referencing.
Right.
He thrives on surrounding himself with inspiring people.
Yeah, like Laura Sisk, his engineer.
Yes.
He raves about her being the best he's ever worked with.
Yeah.
Not just because of her technical skills.
Right.
But her ability to capture those magical moments in the studio.
She's like the guardian of inspiration.
Yeah.
Making sure those creative sparks don't get lost in the whirlwind.
Now, you know how Antonoff originally wanted to call his latest Bleachers album Ordinary Heaven?
Oh, yeah.
He ended up going with a self-titled album.
Right.
But that concept really stuck with me.
It's fascinating because it speaks to his aversion to branding and marketing.
Right.
Like he's not trying to create this larger-than-life image or like an unattainable ideal.
Yeah.
He's drawn to the beauty in everyday moments, the extraordinary within the ordinary.
And that totally connects to his choice to include that Rodney Mullen spoken word sample on the album.
Oh, yeah, such an unexpected element.
It's so unexpected, a legendary skateboarder on a pop album.
I know, right?
Yeah.
But it makes so much sense when you think about it.
Cool.
Mullen's words about finding grace in the mundane, falling and getting back up, they perfectly embody that ordinary heaven concept.
Totally.
And the fact that Antonoff is a huge skateboarding fan just adds another layer to it.
It's like he's inviting us into his world,
Yeah.
sharing these little pieces of himself through the music.
Which makes me wonder,
Yeah.
how does someone like Antonoff, who's achieved so much, keep the creative fire burning?
Right.
How do you evolve without losing sight of your core identity? It's a question he seems to constantly grapple with, you know? But from what I gather, he doesn't overthink it. He doesn't map it out. He just trusts that the music will guide him.
He talks about finishing an album, like reaching a landing, but then immediately wanting to take off again and explore new sonic territory.
Right.
There's this constant drive to create and evolve.
It's almost like he's chasing a feeling and emotion more than a specific sound,
Yeah, and that reminds me of how he talked about pushing himself vocally on anyone. That countrified twist was a deliberate choice.
Right.
Step outside his comfort zone. It's like he's always looking for those unexpected moments.
Right.
Like keeping Lana's spoken word outro in Finesse Bitch.
Totally. Those choices break from like traditional pop song structures.
Yeah.
And they add this layer of intrigue,
Yeah, he's keeping us on our toes.
He is.
But back to that, like, evolving without losing yourself thing.
Yeah.
It's not just about individual songs.
Right.
It's about the whole album experience.
Right.
Didn't he compare his albums to operas?
Yes, exactly. Each song contributes to this larger narrative.
Yeah.
A cohesive whole.
Yeah.
You can really feel the thought he puts into like sequencing pacing.
Right.
And those emotional peaks and valleys,
Yeah.
He's crafting a journey for the listener, like a full spectrum of human experience.
Okay, so we're talking intentional imperfection.
Yeah.
And this big picture, thinking about an album's arc.
Right.
It's making me appreciate his albums on a whole other level.
That attention to detail really elevates his work beyond just a collection of songs.
Yeah.
It's an immersive experience.
Speaking of immersive, one thing I've always noticed about Antonoff's production is the distinct atmosphere. That sonic world he creates.
Yeah.
There's warmth and shimmer and a certain nostalgia. I always know when I'm listening to an Antonoff production.
It's like he's tapping into a collective musical memory. You know, those classic synth guitars, layered vocal harmonies.
Yeah.
It's all very intentional. He's talked about his love for vintage instruments, like the Lindrum and the Mellotron, and how even their limitations inspire him.
It's interesting because, unlike a lot of producers, he isn't chasing trends.
Right.
He's finding inspiration in the timeless.
Yeah.
Remember that quote about wanting to drill further and further into what he's doing?
Oh, yeah, that really resonated with me.
Yeah.
He's not concerned with chasing the next big thing,
Right.
He's committed to mastering his craft, his unique sound.
And he's so articulate about his process, his philosophy.
Right.
He just casually drops these gems of wisdom in interviews.
Yeah.
That make you want to grab a pen and start taking notes.
Remember that idea about doubt being a product of fear? So simple, but so profound.
Or the sounding new versus sounding good thing.
Right.
These are insights that can totally change the way you think about creativity.
And it's not just about music theory. He's also really vocal about the need to protect those authentic creative moments, to create safe spaces for artists to be vulnerable and experiment without judgment.
He's a champion for artists and their creative freedom.
He's also spoken out against the music industry's obsession with metrics over art.
Yeah.
You know how artists are often undervalued and exploited?
He's not afraid to call out the BS.
No, he's not.
Which brings me to something that's been on my mind.
Oh, okay.
You know how Antonoff talks about his New Jersey sound?
Yeah.
Do you think a specific geographic identity can influence music that strongly, even beyond genre?
That's such a thought-provoking question.
Yeah.
And Antonoff's own words about his New Jersey sound definitely offer a compelling case study.
He said he wouldn't shake that sound even if he could.
Right. It's deeply ingrained in his musical DNA.
Yeah. He even compares it to the distinct sounds coming out of Jamaica or Manchester.
Right.
And he's not alone. Think about Bruce Springsteen.
Oh, yeah.
His music is inextricably linked to the spirit of New Jersey.
Absolutely.
It makes you wonder if there's something in the water, the air,
right,
that permeates the music.
I think it's about the stories, the struggles and triumphs, the unique cultural landscape that shapes an artist's perspective.
And for Antonoff, New Jersey seems to be this wellspring of inspiration.
Yeah.
He even talks about how it's often misunderstood or made fun of.
Right.
But he sees beauty and richness there that he wants to capture.
He's using music to reclaim the narrative.
Yeah. And it's not just Springsteen. He also mentions bands like the Feelies and the Bouncing Souls.
Yeah.
These underground punk acts that also embody that distinct New Jersey sound.
Right.
Which makes me think about the whole concept of music scenes. Antonoff seems to be nostalgic for those times when scenes felt more defined, more insular.
Yeah.
Before the internet made everything so accessible.
He talked about how the internet, while giving artists more control and direct access to their audience, has also fragmented the music landscape.
Right.
The fire of a scene, as he put it, has been broken up into billions of different pieces.
It's a double-edged sword.
It is.
But even with all these changes and challenges in the industry, he seems optimistic about the future of music.
He sees a new generation of artists who are driven by authenticity and the need to express themselves honestly and fearlessly.
Right.
And he's excited to be a part of that movement, to use his platform to amplify those voices.
It goes back to that collaborative spirit. That drive to nurture and support other artists.
And we see that reflected in his work with Taylor Swift and Lana Del Rey.
They're
all pushing boundaries, challenging conventions, creating music that's both deeply personal and universally resonant.
They're not afraid to experiment, to take risks, to make music that sounds new, not just good.
They're creating those sonic worlds that are both familiar and otherworldly. Inviting listeners in for a truly unique experience.
It's that commitment to innovation, to pushing the boundaries of pop music. That makes Antonoff's collaborations so compelling. He's not just producing hits. He's helping shape the sound of a generation.
And his influence goes way beyond the music itself. He's fostering a sense of community, a spirit of collaboration that inspires a whole new wave of artists.
He's building bridges between genres, generations, artists, and their audience. He's creating spaces where creativity can flourish.
A space where vulnerability is celebrated. Where anything feels possible.
It's truly a legacy worth celebrating.
It is.
But, thinking about his influence on this new generation of artists, it makes me think about his own evolution. How has Antonoff managed to remain relevant and influential in a constantly changing industry?
Yeah, it really is wild to think about how he's gone from those DIY tours
to producing for some of the biggest names in music. And yet, he's still that same guy. Passionate about capturing raw emotion. And sonic experimentation.
It really speaks to his authenticity, you know? He hasn't compromised his artistic vision for commercial success.
And that seems to be like a key ingredient in his staying power.
Yeah.
Right?
Totally.
He's not just chasing trends. He's creating them.
Right. He's not just like a producer for hire, just churning out generic pop hits.
Right.
He's a true collaborator.
Yeah.
Deeply invested in the artists he works with.
He said it himself. It's not just about making a hit song.
Right.
It's about helping artists tell their stories.
Yeah.
And push their own creative boundaries.
And you can feel that genuine connection in the music.
Yeah.
It's not forced or calculated. It's a true partnership,
Totally.
A meeting of the minds.
Which brings me back to that quote we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
It's better to sound new than to sound good. It's such a simple statement.
Yeah.
But it perfectly encapsulates his creative philosophy.
It's about embracing those rough edges, There's unexpected moments that might not be technically perfect,
right? But
they add a layer of authenticity and originality.
He's not afraid to break the rules, to experiment with sounds,
right?
To trust his gut, even if it means like deviating from the norm.
And I think that's what resonates with both artists and listeners.
Totally. It's refreshing in an industry that often prioritizes polish over substance.
Absolutely.
He's all about capturing the essence of an emotion, a story.
Right.
Even if it means getting a little messy.
And he's constantly evolving,
Yeah.
Pushing himself to discover new sounds and explore different ways of storytelling.
He's like a musical mad scientist.
Yeah.
Always tinkering and experimenting in the studio.
Totally. And he's not afraid to share his discoveries.
Right. He's so open about his process.
Yeah.
His struggles, his triumphs.
Yeah.
He really demystifies the creative process, which I think is so valuable for aspiring artists and music lovers alike.
He's building a community,
Yeah.
Fostering a culture of collaboration and experimentation
Yeah.
that goes beyond just making music.
Right. It's about pushing the boundaries of what's possible in pop music.
Yeah, creating art that matters.
And that's what makes Antonoff such an inspiring figure.
Yeah.
He's not just creating music, he's creating a movement.
He's a testament to the power of authenticity, collaboration, and like a relentless pursuit of creative evolution.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of Jack Antonoff, we're left with this question that we touched upon earlier.
Okay.
Does a distinct geographic identity like Antonoff's New Jersey sound have the power to influence music in a way that transcends genre? Is it something you hear in the music you listen to?
It's a good question.
Keep exploring Antonoff's work and his collaborators' music with this thought in mind.
Yeah.
And until next time, keep diving deep.